I think is really important is to try to break out of our bubbles. Try to break out of our bubbles. So, for example, when I was in college, I adopted a grandma. Her name was Wilma, and I would go visit her at the nursing home. And I was just reflecting on that the other day because her knuckles were, she must have had some kind of arthritis lifelong. I don't know actually, but her hands, they were just very interesting hands. But if we never see older people, then we never know what it means to really age. And so you have anti-aging things targeted at someone my age who I wouldn't even consider myself old, but when I was 20, I would have considered myself old now. It's like we don't have a good perspective on what the ranges of a woman's life are. And so I think really branching out because, for example, gray hair. My hair is turning gray. I'm trying to just live with it and see what it's like to just let my hair turn gray. But there's pressure everywhere to not have gray hair. And so if I don't know anyone with gray hair, I don't know that that's okay. That's just a tiny example. But I think that we have to seek out things that are not in our circles.
What's up, ladies? Welcome to the health class She Deserves, the show where we ditch outdated women's health myths and talk real bodies, real cycles, and real stories. I'm your host, Autumn Payon, and today's guest is one of the most recognizable and respected names in the world of eating disorder treatment. Jessica Setnick is a registered dietitian with a background in anthropology, a combination that gives her a fascinating perspective on why we eat the way we do and how to have a healthier relationship with food. She has developed treatment protocols for top-tier hospitals and college campuses, and she is the founder of the International Federation of Eating Disorder Dietitians. But what makes Jessica truly unique is her mission to broaden the conversation, emphasizing what she calls disruptive or dysfunctional eating. Whether you've struggled with a diagnosed eating disorder or you're one of the millions of women who feel stuck in that gray area of food obsession, body shame, and constant dieting, this episode is for you. We're diving into how to reclaim your inner eater and how to stop letting an intentional, profit-driven culture dictate how you feel in your own body. Jessica, welcome to class.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here, and I loved everything you said. I'm totally in.
Thank you. Awesome. So you have done amazing work in this field, supporting patients, helping medical professionals do better, and you treat eating disorders. But as mentioned in the introduction, you don't always love that term, eating disorder. So let's start there, I guess. I have kind of like a 3-part question here to start us off. What exactly is an eating disorder? What are the limitations to that term? Why don't you love it? And why is a term like disruptive eating a little bit better?
Got it. Okay. So what is an eating disorder? An eating disorder is a situation where someone has their eating, instead of being on a spectrum of supporting and benefiting their life, it is detracting and harming their life. And that can be all the way to threatening their life, or it can just be disruptive to their life, but something negative about someone's eating. And not just the foods that they eat, their nutrition, but also the way they think about food, the way they spend time on preparing food, like the amount of time, the quality of the time, the feelings that they have before they eat, during eating, after they eat, the regrets they feel, those all combine into the eating disorder. The reason I don't love the term is because technically eating disorders have very strict definitions. Those are made by psychologists for psychologists to give those diagnoses. And so when we use those, we're eliminating a lot of people who don't fit into that box. And I'm not a fitting into the box kind of person at all. And so when we use the terms eating disorders, even everyone listening to this, you probably get a picture in your mind of 1 or 2 types of people and what they look like. And those stereotypes cause immense problems with people who are actually having issues with their eating, getting identified, diagnosed, treated for their eating problems, because everyone basically is looking for these specific sort of person types or body types to say this person has an eating disorder. And that is a very small percentage of people. Anyone who eats can have an eating problem. And so I prefer to use the terms eating problem, disruptive eating, dysfunctional eating, never disordered eating, because that just confuses everybody, but some kind of problem eating. I prefer dysfunctional eating simply because it makes sense to me. But eating disorders, I think shrinks that box to a very small group of people that fit into the box. And really, any of us can have problem eating, and anyone with problem eating deserves to get help.
I love that because I love how you say the thoughts and feelings part of it, because I think we just tend to hear eating disorder and we immediately think of like the really, you know, drastic situations, like you were saying, and either starving yourself or binge eating and those types of things. But a lot of times, like what you're saying, dysfunctional eating patterns are really in those thoughts and feelings of the individual. And
Yeah, I mean, someone could be eating you and I could be eating the same exact thing for lunch, but if you're eating it because you're really enjoying it and I'm eating it because I'm terrified of eating anything else, to me, it's really important that experience of eating, not just the molecules that we put in our mouth.
mhm. Yes, exactly. And yeah, for that reason, it also can be really, it's not obvious. It's not like necessarily the people around you are going to notice because
Yeah,
they're not inside your
exactly.
brain.
Part of it is that, and part of it is because we usually feel ashamed of the weird stuff we do with food. And as someone who has heard 25 years of the weird stuff people do with food, I promise you, whatever you're doing with food is not the weirdest. But we feel sort of ashamed. We don't want to talk about it. And so, yeah, you definitely might not see it in a person, even that you're very close to, if they're purposefully trying to keep it secret because they're embarrassed.
Mhm. And do you find that a term more like disruptive eating from a patient's perspective, do you find that it helps them sort of process a little bit better?
I think so. I mean, there's even a book called Sick Enough that's about eating disorders because many people who are experiencing problems with their eating don't think I'm sick enough to qualify as having an eating disorder, right? Like, I may feel like I need to get rid of my food every day, but someone else I know does it 6 times a day. So I can't really have a problem. Or everybody does this. Or I learned it from an influencer. So it can't really be a problem. So, yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And that kind of brings me to my next point of a lot of us don't even realize that we're struggling with some sort of dysfunctional eating patterns until you're on the other side of it. So for people listening who maybe feel like they're just being careful or disciplined with their diet, what are some subtle signs that we're actually headed down a slippery slope into something more disruptive?
Yeah. So I would say number one, if there's anything you're doing with your food that you're embarrassed to be seen doing in public, right? And I guess I take away things that are just sort of like manners, like maybe you wouldn't eat ice cream out of the container with your friends. I think I would, but there's certain things that you don't do just because, they're just sort of considered inappropriate. But if there's things that you're doing with your food where you feel like you are spending way too much time, way too much energy on it, if you're feeling like food is sort of taking over your life, whether it's eating it or avoiding it, if you feel guilty and regretful whenever you eat, if you feel like you can't enjoy your food, if you're worried everything that you're going to eat is going to change your body, it's really the idea of putting too much weight and value on the way we eat that's making us either a good person or making us an appealing person or attractive person or a lovable person. It's really giving food too much credit, let's say. If that's what's going on, those
Mhm.
are all clues.
And this is probably a bit of a nuanced question. I'm sure there's like a lot of different answers to this, but you have a background in anthropology, right? So I'm sure you've dove into the why behind all of these things. Can you unpack a little bit, at least, of like why these patterns develop,
Sure,
and
sure.
particularly for women?
Sure. And in some cases, it's as simple as brain chemistry, right? There's just different ways that our body and brain chemistry work, and food is a mood altering chemical. So if you are deficient in certain chemicals in your body, food actually replenishes you. So some of it is that on the other side with the brain and body chemistry, sometimes not eating for some people feels really rewarding. It makes you actually feel better. So whether it's eating or not eating, over exercising, even self harm, throwing up, those are things that change body chemistry. So if someone's feeling bad, depressed, anxious, upset, sometimes those things help us regulate. So that's a big part of it is that those things all change brain chemistry. Along with drugs, alcohol, sex, all kinds of things change our brain and body chemistry. Food and eating behaviors are one of those things. So sometimes it's just as simple as chemistry. Other times it's because we've we've learned that, right? We've just learned to be very precautious about what we eat, or ladies don't weigh more than XYZ, or right? They're just sort of sometimes learned behaviors. And then other times it's related to an addiction, can be related to an addiction. And other times it's related to stress and bad events happening, which change our brain and body chemistry. And again, food, not eating, eating, compensatory behaviors, over exercise, those things change it back. So we can't say for a fact what causes all eating issues, because probably there's a slightly different path for every person, but there are sort of these big groups of things. And one of the biggest groups is changing your eating under stress. So whether that means dieting because you have a big event coming up, or whether that means you've been diagnosed with a condition that requires you to eat a special diet, any of those stressful situations that are also meshed with having to change your eating, that is the key catalyst for an eating disorder. And who here doesn't have stress? No one. And who here doesn't sometimes think, oh, if I ate differently, if I looked differently, then I would have less stress. So that's why a lot of us have disruptive eating behaviors, because once you start, it can sort of start this biochemical cascade in your body that keeps it going, even if you don't want to anymore.
I love how you bring it all back to the chemistry of everything going on. I think, at least for me personally, I don't know if this is relatable to other listeners, but I find it much easier, I guess, to grasp these things when it's like, well, let's just bring it back to biology. Like, this is not reflecting on my value as a human being or who I am. It is just biological.
No, because think about it. The things that cause eating disorders are the same things that everybody does, right? We all have weighed ourselves multiple times a day to see what happens, or skip meals in order to fit into a certain dress that we used to fit into, or, you know what I mean? We've all done those things because we're sort of curious, or, we think that that's going to help us in some way. We don't do it in order to cause a problem. We do it because we think it's going to solve something. And so not everybody has the body chemistry or the brain chemistry that makes it hook in and makes it become an obsession. It's one of those things where we can't judge anyone with an eating disorder or even disruptive eating, because it could be us. We really don't know. So there's nothing to be ashamed of, but I think we are ashamed because we're already operating from kind of a shame-based space. Every piece of media you see wants you to not feel good about yourself because it wants to sell you something. And if you feel great about yourself, then you don't need products to make you feel better about yourself. So our whole consumer culture is based on you not being good enough. It's no surprise that we don't feel good enough.
That was, yes, so well said, because it really, when you break it down, that really is ultimately what it all comes back to. And particularly for women, because we are the big group of consumers, we do the majority of consumption, and it's a form of control, right? But I want to take a moment before we get too deep into that to talk about the long-term effects of eating disorders or dysfunctional eating, both psychologically and physically. Because I think that a lot of people don't realize how it can damage your body long-term.
Well, I'm going to rephrase that and say people may realize that, but they may feel like that won't happen to me, or that's so far away, or if I can be skinny, it's worth it. And I can tell you, I am 53 years old and I just got diagnosed with osteoporosis. And I don't think that would have mattered to me 30 years ago if you had said you're going to have osteoporosis when you're 53. That just seemed super far away. And now here I am dealing with that consequence. I think everybody knows that starving yourself, or throwing up after you eat, or abusing laxatives, I think everybody knows that that's probably not good for you. But in the moment, the way it feels, it can be like an addiction. Like, we all know cocaine is not good for you. But in the moment when you feel like you need it, you're not really thinking about the consequences down the road.
Right. Yeah. Because you continue getting those dopamine spikes in the same way with drug use, and then it just becomes this slippery slope of like,
Yeah.
you need
And I think
more and
that's a
more.
weird thought for people to think about, that eating disorder behaviors, we think of them as a problem, but when you're doing it, it really feels like the solution. It really feels like it will help me. So any number of professionals saying like, you're really hurting yourself is not really effective. I've never found that to be an effective way to help someone heal. That's like saying you're really depressed. You need to stop doing it. Like, it's not a thing that someone is doing on purpose. It's sort
Mhm.
of it's a malfunction. I don't know if that's quite the right word, but it's a situation that is out of someone's control. But we keep thinking, I can control it. Tomorrow I'll wake up and not be depressed. Tomorrow I'll jump out of bed like a piece of popcorn. It doesn't happen that way because thinking something doesn't make it happen. Even if someone thinks, I can't believe I'm doing this, I'm really damaging my heart muscle, that doesn't actually make you able to stop doing it.
Think that's a great way to phrase it, of it coming back to control, because it's like kind of an oxymoron, because you're like doing it to regain control, but actually you're becoming less and less in control. Um, same way with addiction. And it kind of, I feel like from somebody on the outside of it who maybe is thinking like, well, you can control what you eat, or you can control how you think about eating, like just do it. It's like we need a little more empathy and nuance in that
Yeah.
conversation, because it's not about like self-control,
Right. And I think that is such an important point to make, is that we all think we wake up in the morning and we make all our own choices. But I keep seeing that clip from Devil Wears Prada 1, now that Devil Wears Prada 2 is out, about the cerulean sweater. Like, you think you chose that sweater, but really that sweater was chosen for you by all these things that were set up in the systems before. And I feel like it's the same thing with food. We all woke up and thought, I'm going to make the decision about what I'm going to eat for breakfast, or not eat for breakfast, or not eat at all, or drink coffee for breakfast. And really, there's so many things that were in our lives before we were even born. It's a weird thought, but like, what counts as food? What grocery store is in your neighborhood? What that grocery store stocks for food? How much money you have for food? If you have a coffee maker in your house. Like, there's so many things that we think of as our own personal choice. And then we are also told it's your personal choice, whether you are pretty or not, whether you're skinny or not, whether you're rich or not. All these things are your choice. You can manifest them all for yourself, which in some ways, yes, we have some choices, but the choices are dictated to us by a lot of factors that are invisible. And so the
Mhm.
idea that we are totally in control, it's like, relax. Nothing is in control. We are
Mhm.
not in control of anything, but we give ourselves that illusion because the idea that everything is out of our control is way too scary to get out of bed in the morning.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes, exactly. And I understand exactly what you're saying, where it's like, yes, we have some level of control over what we prime our brain for, but the
Yeah.
majority of people don't understand that about neurochemistry. And even if they do, don't necessarily understand how to change that, because certain conditioning runs so deep. And that
Well,
that kind of brings me to my
conditioning, but
next
also
question.
biology and epigenetics. Like, how stressed
Right.
were your parents when you were little and they were
Mhm.
feeding you as a child? And what about your ancestry? What about your heritage? I mean, here's a perfect example. Would you eat a guinea pig? If you say no, gross, a guinea pig is a pet, not food, you probably grew up in a certain country. But if you say a guinea pig, yum, those are delicious, you grew up in a different country, right? So even the
Mhm.
choice of what is food and what is not food is inherited. And so that whole, like, you have to clean your plate because there's children starving in another country, that is inherited. We did not wake up this morning thinking those things, but they are
Mhm.
so ingrained and internalized in us that we think they're our own thoughts.
Exactly. And yeah, I'd love to ask how, kind of how what we're talking about here, we're so heavily influenced by our environment, and especially early childhood experiences. How does the way that our parents or caregivers, talk about food and, express their feelings about food and all of that, how does that set us up or not set us up for an adolescence or adulthood of disruptive eating?
Yeah. So your first experience of self esteem is being nourished when you're an infant and you don't even realize that you're your own person. You only sense vibes, right? You can't even see very well, but you absorb the regulation of the person who's holding you when you're being fed. So if no one's holding you, if they just prop you up with a bottle, you're not getting any regulation from another human. If the person who's feeding you is distracted, anxious, mentally altered because they're using drugs, then you don't get that calm sense of I am okay. And so you
Mhm.
have to have not every single time you're fed, but you have to have consistent feeding where you don't have to cry for an hour to get fed. You have to have a lot of care in order to grow up with a self-esteem base. We call it attachment sometimes, but with a secure attachment that is, I am okay, so I can venture out and try new things because I know there's a safe place for me to come back to. And if meal times in your home growing up were not a safe place, if that was where everyone got yelled at about getting bad grades or spending too much money, then you have a negative association with meal times. If for whatever reason you didn't have family meal times and people weren't together, you may have a negative association with meal times. And the problem becomes, even as an adult, if you decide I want to do things differently, A, you may not have the skills, and B, you may go too far in the other direction, right? So let's say someone who didn't have family meals at home might say, every night, everyone in my family must be at the table at 6 o'clock. And they sort of make that a miserable experience for the other people in their family because they're trying to counteract a different kind of miserable experience.
That's so interesting that you brought that, especially the part about like, is the dinner table where people got yelled at. Like, I feel like that, at least, I don't know what Gen Alpha is really up to these days, but at least for like me and an older dinner, I feel like the dinner table, it was just the time that the entire family was together. And so, yeah, it was a lot of like happy stuff, but there was also, if tension came up, that was when it came up because it was just the time that we were all gathered and talking. And so it's so interesting to think how those little internal experiences affect us. And I was also thinking when you were speaking about like TV dinners every single night, like TV dinners or like movie dinners were a special treat for us. But when I went to college, it was like I was always watching something while I was eating, or I was, studying or writing a paper while I was eating. Like, it was never sitting and actually intentionally having a meal. And I'm sure that also really affected my brain chemistry of what feelings I associate with
Oh, I've
food.
totally had a whole meal and then like half an hour later thought, did I eat lunch? Because I was so dissociated or distracted when I was eating that I can think about it and I have a memory of it. I'm like, the dishes are in the sink. Oh yeah, I did eat something. But I have no like body sense memory of having actually eaten something.
Yes, I absolutely can relate to that. I've gotten better with that over the years, but I think college especially was a time where it was just like I was never really conscious while I was eating. But for the parents listening who want to protect their children from this, do you have any advice?
Well, if you knew as a parent there was one thing you could do that would protect your kids from having eating problems, would you do it? And if you say yes, the answer is deal with your own eating stuff. Get with a dietitian. I personally recommend an eating disorder dietitian, even if you don't identify as having an eating disorder, because we're the ones who sift things apart really well of what is about food and what isn't about food. We can give you guidance on what you want to keep maybe to yourself or your own therapy or your best friend rather than flinging it out onto our kids. And we can also prevent you from going 180 degrees the wrong way, right? If your parents never made you eat anything and you think that's why you're a picky eater, so now you make your kids eat things, like that's just 180 degrees in a different direction of dysfunctional. So we can help you pick through that and see which things maybe you want to keep from your parenting strategy and which things maybe it's time to let go.
I love that advice because I think, yeah, ultimately that is where it comes from. If we're instilling certain ideas and beliefs onto our children, chances
Well,
are they're
yeah,
things
and you're
that
your
we
child's
hold.
number one role model, especially in those early years. You're the main adult that they see. And granted, once they go to school, they're around a lot more people, but those first few years can be really instrumental in that secure attachment. And even if your kids are
Mhm.
older and you feel like maybe things have gone in a wrong direction, there's ways to course correct that don't involve ruining the relationship between you and your child.
Yes, absolutely. So let's circle back a little bit. I know we started to talk a little bit about sort of media propaganda, and there's this sort of war against women that has been going on for God knows how long, trying to make us as small as possible. Now, we've got the rise of GLP-1s, which is a whole other thing. And this messaging is just everywhere. How can we begin to, one, bring awareness to it, and then two, protect ourselves?
So, the first thing I think is really important is to try to break out of our bubbles. try to break out of our bubbles. So, for example, I'm thinking when I was in college, I adopted a grandma. Her name was Wilma, and I would go visit her at the nursing home. And I was just reflecting on that the other day because her knuckles were, she must have had some kind of arthritis lifelong. I don't know actually, but her hands were, they were just very interesting hands. I don't know the right word, but if we never see older people, then we never know what it means to really age. And so you have anti-aging things targeted at someone my age who I wouldn't even consider myself old, but when I was 20, I would have considered myself old now. It's like we don't have a good perspective on what the ranges of a woman's life are because we're usually just with people in our same age range or our same stage of life. And so I think really branching out because when I see someone who is, let's say, a woman who's 20 years older than me, and I think, oh my gosh, wow, look at her. Like, for example, gray hair. She has beautiful gray hair. My hair is turning gray. I'm trying to just live with it and see what it's like to just let my hair turn gray. But there's pressure everywhere to not have gray hair. And so if I don't know anyone with gray hair, I don't know that that's okay. That's just a tiny example. But I think that we have to seek out things that are not in our circle. So, for example, if I see someone on social media who maybe has a larger body than mine and they're super athletic or they are super fashionable or something like that, I follow those people on purpose. I kind of have stepped away from social media in the moment, but when I'm on social media, I like knowing that I'm going to see body types that are not just skinnier than me that make me feel too big. I'm going to see all different types of people and I'm going to see all different types of people dancing and doing fun things so that I don't get sucked into the idea that you have to be a certain size to have fun or you have to be a certain size to do certain things or be in a bathing suit or something like that. It's like we just get more of what we are looking at, right, on social media. And so we have to sort of actively look for things that are different from us, whether it's on social media, whether it's in real life, whether it's on TV, etc., because we are only going to get more of the stuff that makes us want to be smaller and less, unless we're actively looking for things that make it look cool. And not necessarily cool, that's not quite the right word because I don't want to follow what's cool, but that make it okay and safe to grow older, to be different, to let our bodies change as bodies normally do. Like, I don't know where we got the idea that once you hit like 22, like that's the size your body should be for the rest of your life and you should never change at all. It's just not how it works. But I think we have to experience people going through those different life stages in order to know that those are natural, let's say, and
That's
even
amazing advice.
desirable.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Because, yeah, like you said, like the internet can be such an echo chamber. And I think we're all a little bit susceptible to the bias of like, well, it doesn't apply to me, but your algorithm is an echo chamber. That's how it's built. That's what it is. So going out of your way, like you said, to follow accounts that offer new perspectives and new ideas and actively push back against these more patriarchal norms that we're constantly being bombarded with, it's a great way to retrain your algorithm and retrain your brain a little bit because
Yeah.
I think ultimately, probably the healthiest thing for all of us would be to get rid of social media. But it's just not realistic at this point. People aren't going to do it. So I think taking those active choices to make social media a healthier place for you
Yeah.
and keeping
Another
limits
thing
on
you
it,
can
of
do
course.
is just counteract in the moment. Like if I'm looking in the mirror and I like touching my stomach and I'm like, frowning, like sad, like my stomach is bigger than I want it to be. I turn it around and I like caress my stomach and I smile and I'm like, yeah, even though it kind of feels fake in the moment, I still don't want the only interactions I have with my body to be a negative.
Yes, that's amazing. And that's also, I tell people that all the time. It might feel fake at first, but fake it till you make it is a very real thing. And you can use that to your advantage because the
Well,
more often
and
you're doing that,
the negative is just as fake as the positive. So it's not like
exactly.
saying you hate your body is also an internalized thought from someone else. So it's just as
Exactly.
fake. It just feels more genuine because we've been so conditioned to think it's our own thoughts when instead it's thoughts that were implanted. If you didn't have it when you were born, it is a thought you got from somewhere else.
Exactly. Yes. It's literally everything is our brains are so malleable, particularly, in early childhood. And essentially every belief you hold, like, I think it's really, really healthy for your brain to continuously question your beliefs and attack things from the other side. And if your beliefs hold up, awesome. Like that's like a really
Yeah.
core, like moral point. But if you're presented with new information and you reframe your belief, that's intelligence. Like that, I think a lot of people are scared to do that because it'll make them seem like wishy-washy or whatever. But that is intelligence. That
No,
is
that's maturity.
how it's supposed
The
to be.
first time I
Yeah.
read something that said, don't believe everything you think, I was really paused because I
Hmm.
had to think it through. Like, don't believe everything you think. Like, I really had to think that through,
Hmm.
that I can have more than one thought about the same thing. So, how can I say any one of them is true? And what I've learned and what I teach is that it's all about perception. That's why different people can see the same event and have different eyewitness accounts, because we perceive things through the lens of, yes, our eyes, but then it processes through our brain. So, how you're feeling in the moment, how you feel about the item that you see. It's so weird how you can look at yourself and think, I look so great, and go out. And then let's say the person you're interested rejects you or something like that. And then you're suddenly feeling so ugly. I mean, your body, your appearance has not changed, but your mindset has changed. So what you see when you look in the mirror can be totally different.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think even just the same, like, yeah, I get ready to like go out and maybe have a couple drinks and alcohol changes my brain chemistry. Like, so me, like the next morning I will get such anxiety and like just feel really tense. And I'll look in the mirror and it'll be the opposite of what I was like last night I was feeling myself. And this morning I'm like, oh my God, terrible. And really the only thing that is different in those two situations is had recently had alcohol, but I look exactly the same as I did 12 hours before. I think a lot of people relate to that one. Yeah. Yeah. And so this kind of brings me to body image. Body image is a really big part of this that can influence our eating patterns greatly, but body image is constructed by the brain. Can you just unpack that a little bit?
Sure. So you have never actually seen your body. You've seen a reflection of your body in the mirror. You can see parts of your body when you look down. You've seen a photo of your body, which is sort of a two-dimensional version of a moment in time in a certain lighting, but you can't actually see your whole body, and you definitely can't see it the way other people see it. So if you think about how long we've been around, how long our brains have been developing, and that most of that time, most people had no ability whatsoever to see what they looked like. Eventually, there were mirrors, but before that, you maybe could look at yourself in like a puddle or a pond, but you'd be looking down, right?
Hmm.
Nobody knew how they looked, and it was okay. And so our brains really haven't developed, kind of the way that if you've ever heard your voice in a recording, our brains haven't developed to hear our own voices outside of our head. It's the same thing with the way we look. We haven't evolved to know what to do with the reflection when we see it. It's a very weird thought, but I can prove to you that your brain is lying to you about what you look like. And it's very simple. If you're driving while you listen to this, do not do this. But if you're not, close your left eye and then use your right eye to look at your nose, and you can see the side of your nose. Okay. Now open your left eye, close your right eye, and use your left eye to look at your nose, and you can see the other side of your nose. Now open your right eye. You have both eyes open. Where is your nose? You cannot see your nose. Your brain edits out your nose so that you can see what's going on in front of you. I mean, if that's not proof that your brain is editing all the time. Another example is, before you go to sleep, you have all these great ideas, right? And you have to keep a notepad by your bed, or you forget it, or your phone or whatever. But why? Because when you close your eyes, you actually become smarter because of all the pieces of information that your brain has to process when your eyes are open. You don't have that when you close your eyes. And so all that brain power can be used to something more useful. It is amazing to think how our perception can be completely wrong. Here's another example. Have you ever been driving down the road and you saw a police car pull up behind you, turn on its sirens, and you're thinking, oh my God, I'm getting pulled over. And then the police car like zips around you to go pull over someone else. But your body is still reacting like you're getting pulled over. Your body reacts to what your mind told you, even though your mind told you a fake story. Your mind told you the lie that you were getting pulled over, and you believed it. And so your body chemistry is all out of whack. This is going on all day long with our perceptions of our bodies. You look down at your foot and you think, oh, my foot's too big, or my foot's too weird, or my toes are too curved, or, it's like these are all coming from our brain, and our brain is absorbing all the information in the world that is telling us that we're not okay. So body image isn't just how you look. It's also what you feel about what you see, and it's what you've been told about how you look. And that's where we can have a huge amount of permeability to all the messages of the world. Is hearing about how we look can make us feel not good enough. If we hear that your hair is frizzy, if you hear that your nails are too short, I mean, it can literally go to every body part, no matter how small. It can go to your pores. Your pores can be wrong. So it's literally everything about our bodies is being told that something's wrong so that someone can sell us something. So our body image is going to be negative by default. We have to find ways to feel positive about our bodies on purpose.
That is so incredible because it's so true. We have this bias too that like what we're seeing is reality. But when you actually dive into the neuroscience of everything, there's really no such thing as reality. Like reality is kind of what you make it because of this perception, like what you were saying. And when I learned about the neuroscience of vision, just vision by itself, I was stunned because it's, first of all, so complex. And second of all, before you register that you've seen anything, it goes through your entire brain. It's picking up from your memories, from your belief systems, like all of this stuff. And so by the time you perceive something, it's already indoctrinated with everything you already believe or you've already heard or your brain has been primed to believe. So it's really, truly, I think, really helpful when you like learn about this stuff and hear about this stuff.
Well, and it's the way
to deprogram.
advertising works, right? Advertising isn't meant to educate you about something new. Advertising is meant to tap into what you already believe about something. So that makes perfect sense when you think about how, you're looking at the ad, and it's not like I believe that if I have that car, I will be loved, but it taps into that idea of like, I want enough money to buy a luxury car because la, 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 whatever you already believe about it. It's just tapping into that.
Exactly. And that's, why it's so effective and why companies continue to do it, because it's a great way to get people to act and to buy things. But
yeah. I mean, if there was advertising that said that like everyone should have purple hair, if you don't want purple hair, you're probably able to be like, I don't really care about purple hair. But the more times you see something about purple hair, or the more times that you're told that like gray hair is bad or frizzy hair is bad, if you already believe some of that, then over time, purple hair isn't going to sound that weird anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So when it comes to like deconstructing this a little bit, I know you mentioned like what you do in the mirror, you will intentionally like caress your body and smile. And even if it feels fake, just kind of have a loving moment with yourself. Do you have any other advice when it comes to, I guess, overwriting this code that we're all indoctrinated with?
Yeah. And some of it is not needing to understand why. So in other words, the dream would be, let's say that I'm at work with you and you're eating a Snickers bar. I'm just totally making this up. And I'm like, ooh, I want a Snickers bar. Autumn has a Snickers bar. I want a Snickers bar. And I get up to go get a Snickers bar. And then I realize, you know what? It's really that Autumn has a really cute boyfriend and I'm single, and I really envy what Autumn has. And I think that's why I wanted a Snickers bar. I don't really want a Snickers. I just need to maybe get up and take a little walk and, maybe make plans with Autumn to do something later, or make plans with a friend, whatever it is, that I was just feeling lonely. Like that's the key, but that's really hard to do in real time. So my suggestion is to do something more simple. Autumn's eating a Snickers bar. I want a Snickers bar. Just ask myself, would I eat an apple right now? I use an apple because it's just kind of boring. You might use the saltine cracker test or the broccoli test. It's not supposed to mean I should go get something healthy instead of a Snickers bar. That's not what I'm saying at all. But the idea of I want something to eat but is it because I need fuel, or is it a different kind of emptiness that I'm feeling? And I may not be able to tell you the whole story and go all the way to that point of like, wow, I'm feeling lonely. That's why I'm feeling empty. But I can at least identify that it's not actually hunger that I want. Now, if the answer is yes, I would eat an apple, it doesn't mean I have to go get an apple. I could go get a Snickers bar. I could go get a turkey sandwich. But it's just a way of saying, am I having emotions that are making me think I want food? Or is it time for some food? And that's a good way to sort of like a tiny way to break the cycle of eating for emotional reasons. I'm trying to think of what else. I would say the other thing that you could do sort of in the moment is to, it's so hard. It's so hard. Make sure you have clothes that fit you well and nicely for whatever size you are right now. Make sure you have comfortable underwear, you have comfortable bras. I had to buy all new bras after menopause. Don't ask me why my boobs got bigger. I don't even need to know, but to, you know, buckle myself, I don't know what the right word is, hook myself into a bra that's too tight is not helping, right? I got bra extenders or I got new bras. And so having, even if you have to keep that those other clothes, if you feel like I will fit into those clothes at some point, just push them to the back of the closet, put them in a box, whatever you have to do. Please have clothes that fit you well now, because nothing makes you feel worse or too big than having clothes that don't fit you suitably.
That is so important, because you hear a lot of people talk about like squeezing into their jeans. I think we all have at least one pair of jeans that doesn't actually fit us, but we just don't want to get rid of them. They make our butt look good or whatever. And they make your butt look good because they're literally like squeezing the circulation out of your legs. But I think that's really amazing advice, because that's like part of confidence, I think, is having clothes that you feel good in. And different clothes look very different on different bodies. And so when you see like a size 00 model modeling something and you're like, oh, it looks so good on her, and then you try it on and you're like, this does not look good on me. I think that really contributes to
Well, yeah, and if you
the
think
body image
nothing looks
issues.
good on
And
me, like, that's not true. I mean,
Mhm.
if you want to, just wear caftans like the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. I think I'm in my moo era, but I noticed that when I go on vacation, I feel a lot more comfortable in my body, and there's two things I was able to kind of pinpoint it to. One thing is, when I go on vacation, everyone's in their swimsuit. I only like beach vacations. So I see this whole range of bodies. And yes, there's a little judgy voice in my mind that's like, that person shouldn't be wearing that. That girl has a nice body, but that bikini is too skimpy. Like, there is a little judgy voice, and I practice sending like love to those people instead of judgment, because it's only hurting me to be judgy. But
Yes.
one part that vacation is good for is it helps me see there's a whole range of bodies. There's a whole range of body sizes, body types. There's men out there wearing thong bikinis, okay? There's whatever. It's not for me, okay? But there's lots of ways to be, and none of them are wrong. There's lots of bodies, and they're all having a good time, and that's what's important. Your swimsuit, your body even, is just your earth suit. It's just how you get around, and what you do with it should be fun. Okay, so that's part of it. The other part is, and this is, I didn't realize until my most recent vacation or two, is when I go on vacation, I only take things that fit. The things that don't fit are in my closet. So I'm only choosing from clothes that fit and feel good, because you have to whittle down what you're going to bring on vacation. And so maybe not everyone does that. Maybe some people still bring things that don't really fit, but my take on vacation, I guess, is I'm only going to wear things that fit. And I realized I need to bring that kind of edit back to my home closet, because it does not make me feel good when I have to go somewhere and try on things that don't fit me. I need to be choosing from things that fit me, because that's going to make me feel good about myself instead of bad about myself. And if you have to cut the size
Yes.
tag out of it, who cares? Do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I've been the same. When I go on vacation, I'm bringing the clothes that I feel the most confident in, that I think I look the hottest in. And that just by default is clothes that fit me well. And so it makes sense that, you're not bringing something that's like squeezing you in the wrong places and that doesn't
Yeah.
feel
So
good
why
to
should I
wear.
only get to feel that way on vacation?
Yes, exactly. Every day can be vacation. That's the new mindset.
Yes.
So
Yes. I have
you, yeah.
a sign up in my office. It says, "This is your life. What do you want to pay attention to?" And I look at that every single day, and it's like, do you want to pay attention to the parts of your body that you think are flawed? Do you want to pay attention to everything you don't have? Or do you want to look around you and have gratitude for all the things that are in my life? I'm not saying I don't want to strive for other things, but that attitude of gratitude, that sounds so corny. I can't believe that came out of my mouth. But your brain has like 25,000 million things to focus on. If you can narrow it
Mhm.
down to some of the positive things, your brain looks for more of that.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh God, there's a saying where it's basically like what you give attention to is what
Yeah, is what
grows
grows.
and what
Yes.
becomes more
There's one
prevalent in
other
your
thing
life.
that I'll mention because people will say to me, but if I am grateful for what I have, then I'll never change. Or if I am not mad at myself, then I will never change. Well, I don't know that anyone has ever achieved lasting change by being mad at themselves. But I can tell you that accepting where you are, even if you accept with regret, even if you're like, I can't believe I'm in this place again, and you regret it, that's still better than being in denial of where you are. Because if you're in denial, you can't actually change. It's like saying, if I accidentally drove, I don't know, to Fort Worth instead of to Shreveport, I have to accept with regret that I am in Fort Worth. Otherwise, I can't find the right directions home. And it's the same thing if you're in a
Mhm.
place in your life that you don't love. I'm not saying accept it and stay there. I'm saying accept with regret. You're not necessarily condoning that you're there, but pretending you're not there or being mad at yourself for being there is not going to help you make the good choices that will get you out of it.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's so perfectly said because it's a great analogy too. Like you can't find the directions home if you don't know and accept where you are.
Yes.
Like, okay, I went in the wrong direction, silly me. Let's course correct, right? So I have one last question that I like to
Okay.
ask all of my guests at the end of our interviews. Since this is health class, if you could rewrite the health class curriculum that every woman deserves, what would your first lesson be?
There's so many because I think health class is so problematic. But I would say
Mm,
the world is going to try to make you feel bad about yourself. Be ready. Don't let it in.
that's amazing. That's amazing advice. And imagine if we had a generation of young girls built on that.
Yes. And I went to an all girls school and I had health class and they taught us CPR and they taught us about atherosclerosis and things like that. But I feel like it was kind of taught to us kind of like algebra. Like it wasn't taught to us in terms of like, this is what's going to be in your life. Like it was taught like a
Mhm.
subject. And like we were talking about chemistry before. I was in graduate school before I realized that all this chemistry stuff that they're talking about is happening inside my body. Like in chemistry, if they just would have said these chemicals are going to be in your shampoo, like related it in any way to my life, right? And I feel like
Huh?
that's how health class is. It's like a subject that you learn, but it never gets related into your actual experience of life. And maybe health
Mhm.
class should have been more like asking us questions. What is it like to be
Mhm.
you right now? What are the things you
Mhm.
struggle with? Maybe that's what health class should be, is actually more like group therapy instead of like just teaching you things like don't do drugs and
Mhm.
here's what STDs look like.
Yeah, it's like the humanity is taken out of it a little bit.
Yes.
And there's an amazing company that I interviewed a little while ago called Learn Mobo, and it's supposed to be like accessible, accurate sex education for students, teachers, and parents to kind of help everyone get better sex education because a lot of times, at least, I mean, I went to public school. A lot of times your public school health teacher is like the football coach or like somebody who's not qualified, doesn't feel qualified. And they've, asked educators this, they don't feel qualified to be teaching these topics. And then yeah, the result is exactly what you said. There's
Well,
sort
and
of the
same thing
humanity
with
taken out of it.
nutrition, right? Everybody thinks nutrition is one thing and eating disorders are this totally different subject. And it's like, no, that is the same thing.
Exactly, exactly. And we shy away from the touchier, stickier subjects, especially with children, because a lot of people have this misconception that if you don't teach about it, it's just not going to happen. They won't even know. It's like, well, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
There's still going to be.
And are you teaching age appropriate stuff? Are you teaching little kids about
Mhm.
macros? That's not the way their minds work. It's age inappropriate. I always say if you don't talk to your kids about your sex life, don't talk to your kids about what you're eating. Just be a healthy, happy
Yes.
person in their presence.
Yes. Yes. That's such amazing, amazing advice. This has been a phenomenal conversation, Jessica. I think a lot of people are going to get so much out of this. You have a workbook titled
Healing your inner
Healing Your
eater.
Inner Eater.
Yes.
Yes. I will link that for everybody. Is there anything you'd like to say about that?
Well, I'm going to make it so that if you use the code podcast, it'll bring the price down on the Healing Your
Amazing.
Inner Eater workbook.
Oh, that's amazing. So I will make sure that information is below for everybody. So you guys can go check that out. Where else can people find you?
JessicaSetnick.com is my umbrella website. That's where people invite me to come speak. That's where all my products for health professionals are, my eating disorder bootcamp training course for professionals. JessicaSetnick.com is the main place. And you can always sign up for my e-newsletter there. And there's a pop-up that will come up. And if you ever need to email me, if you want help finding an eating disorder dietitian in your area, just send me an email. I am happy to help.
Amazing. I will put all that information for everybody below. Thank you guys so much for listening. Make sure to share this episode with a friend because we need more empowered, educated women out there fighting back against, all these things that we've been taught and that we just spent a good hour talking about. So thank you so much, Jessica. And
My pleasure. It was super fun.